Mike Pici. I'm the Director of Sales here at HubSpot. We have an awesome guest today, Rob Biederman from Catalant. How's it going, Rob?
Great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, you're welcome. We're excited to have you.
Great.
So we have a really cool session today. I'm really excited about it. What the topic is actually how you pitched Mark Cuban and have since built a multi-million-dollar company. So super exciting topic, really interesting. Why don't you start off, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what your journey here has been like.
Sure, of course. So my co-founders and I had a fairly atypical background for launching a high-growth tech startup. We primarily work in professional services. I've been a private equity investor. And what we found when we were in business school and we had to create a class project was that small businesses really did not have options for getting things done. That they were locked out of the McKinsey, the Goldman Sachs echelon of consulting and investment banking, and that made it very difficult for them to understand how to grow in better ways. So we created a marketplace, which at the time was called Hourly Nerd, to connect small businesses with some of the brightest MBA students in the country. And we were doing it all with technology, so it was incredibly low cost.
Very cool. And this is at the time where you were finishing up at HBS, and you started thinking about how to actually translate this and take it from the classroom to the boardroom, and you applied for Shark Tank.
That's exactly right. So between our first and second year, we tried to raise money. We literally had 25 VC meetings out in California, got totally hosed. Every one of them, you guys are MBAs, nobody on the team knows how to write a line of code. We'd done $9,000 in revenue at that point. We had this idea we believed in tremendously, but we were having a really hard time convincing anybody to invest. And so we applied to Shark Tank, which, definitely not a normal kind of Shark Tank business if you watch that show. And we actually got invited to come and tape, which is great.
Very interesting. So it's cool because we're really talking about really like an entrepreneurship story here. However, this is Inbound Sales Day, and I'm sure we've got a tremendous amount of salespeople in the audience. And so there's this really kind of interesting parallel between the entrepreneurship and the sales. And so you didn't decide to actually go on the show, though.
Yeah, that's the funniest part of the story. So we started reading about the terms and conditions for going on. We started thinking about, what are 4 Harvard MBAs and blazers going to look like on that show? The valuation we were looking for was
you guys would have looked awesome.
The valuations you see on that show are typically in the hundreds of thousands, maybe millions if you're lucky, and we were looking for something a lot bigger than that. And so we decided not to do it. And I don't think they'd ever received an email. The screening process there is so hard that they probably hadn't received many emails saying, well, thanks, but no thanks. So we decided not to go on, and then my co-founder, Joe, said, well, why don't we just email Mark Cuban directly? That's the whole reason why we're going on the show.
And so this is the art of the sales right here, because you guys actually just wrote a cold email to Mark and just decided you were just going to completely bypass the concept of the show altogether. So who wrote the email?
So I wrote the email. I got drew the short straw there. I think a lot of it was very direct. It was probably 3 paragraphs that said, "Dear Mark, I'm Rob Biederman, founder of Hourly Nerd. Got invited to go on Shark Tank, decided not to do it. Here's why. This is the business. This is what we're raising." And at that point we'd gotten commitments from one angel and basically our friends and family. And my co-founders and I were going to put about $100,000, basically all we had, into the business. And I think it was some of that commitment. So a lot, obviously he probably gets 10, 20, 30 pitches a day. I don't think he often says, here's founders saying, we're going to do this no matter what. In order to support the business and be able to make hires, we're going to basically plow our life savings into it.
So cool, man. So everybody out there in the audience, couple notes. I'm actually kind of ashamed that I forgot. We're using the hashtag Inbound Sales Day. So tweet at us, ask us questions, and we definitely want everybody in the audience to be able to ask your questions to Rob today as well. So we'll riff for a little bit here, but definitely want to hear more from you and like what it is that you want to know about and what you want to learn. I guess talk to me a little bit about like why Mark? Like, why did you go after him? It sounds like, the communication approach is rather direct, and obviously he's involved with Shark Tank, but why did you want to work with him over other folks that you could have approached?
Sure, of course. So, I think a lot of angels love to see really strong traction before making an investment. They get pitched all the time. It's no secret that most angel stage investments fail. And one thing they like to see in order to make sure the company's not going to fail is that you've been at it for a couple of years, right? And so in some ways, we said we need to find the least angel, right? Because we knew we were never going to raise from VC. And in many respects, Mark is the kind of guy who's willing to really bet big on big concepts. And because of how much money he has, the amount we were asking for wasn't that big a deal. And so it was this perfect confluence of somebody willing to make a really big swing on a bunch of guys who were working hard and had a good idea, but really hadn't done anything yet.
Totally. That's a quote I say all the time. I say, cards don't make chips, chips make chips. You got to bet, baby. That's what it's all about.
Totally.
So we're getting some questions in from the audience. And again, tweeted us, #InboundSalesDay. People want to know more about this email.
Mm-hmm.
We really want to dig in. We got a bunch of salespeople here, so we really want to dig in. We want to understand a little bit more about the composition of the email, what was going through your mind when you wrote it, and why you think it resonated. I mean, there's a feeling when you send that email of like, is this guy even going to see it? Talk to us about the subject line and specifically how you crafted that subject line.
Sure, absolutely. So, you're trying to stand out in probably dozens of pitches somebody's receiving a day. What I wanted to do was show we were really well prepared to take on the opportunity, that we weren't just a bunch of people who had an idea, but we'd actually experienced the personal pain of our customers, of our target customer segment. So, I basically explained I was a private equity investor at Goldman Sachs and at Bain Capital. We constantly would hire consulting firms, but we never thought they were a good deal. So I'd actually experienced firsthand the issues that we were trying to solve, so knew that the market was real. And then the email was actually pretty brief. It basically laid out the business concept. A lot of it was actually in an appendix kind of below the email. It was probably 15-sentence email.
Yeah.
And then there was a link to a very brief pitch deck attached, which was basically like, this is the market, this is why we're the team to go after it, and this is what we're going to do with money emails.
That's cool. Like, whenever our team here at HubSpot, right, is writing sales emails, one thing that we really try to do is we try to get into the mindset of the buyer, or the mindset of our prospect. And we really try to understand what's going on in this person's world. Why is this not just what we're offering them, but why is this compelling for them? How did you make that connection for Mark on like why he would be interested? Because to your point, he can invest in anything he wants. He's got a bunch of money. Why was it interesting for Mark in this case?
Yeah, so Mark at this point in his life, when he makes investments, he wants to invest in big companies that are going to really change the world in key ways. So I think we were able to make a connection with him very early that while this was right now just a marketplace for small businesses and MBAs, the long-term goal was to really change how work happens in a material way. And he's very big on concepts like AI and the future of work and a lot of change, very serious change in education. And so we were able to tell him that this micro concept, that this business would probably get off the ground and do really well. And if it was able to scale, we'd be scaling into this massive growth area that, not many people are attacking in the same way.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. So we're being told that our sound is a little soft. So we're gonna move up a little bit, get a little bit closer to the camera here. Sound check, everyone write in, let us know if we sound a little bit better at this point. But we could totally keep going. So we talked about the email, we talked about this piece. Now talk to us just about like, close to you here. So talk to us about just like the mindset you have as a founder of your business and how you're thinking about leading this business moving forwards and kind of what goes through your head on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. So, my co-founders and I think a lot in terms of uncertainty, that we don't know how quickly the market's going to develop. And so the brief background that's very important here is that we, company is now called Catalant at gocatalant.com. We work with about 12% of the Fortune 1000, and for them, we are a very important alternative workforce provider. We don't know how quickly that market's going to come about, and we don't know exactly the way in which it's going to develop, whether it's going to be big enterprises buying lots of big projects, small projects, whether it's mid-market. And so what we've tried to do is manage the business with enough flexibility that if things go in a slightly different way, we're good, while remaining very, very dedicated to a few core principles, which are that labor markets are inefficient, that you can make them better with technology, that it's not a good deal for workers and it's not a good deal for employers. And so I think it's that tension between being violently committed to your vision, but completely flexible around the tactics used to achieve it that I think has facilitated a lot of our better outcomes.
It's cool. I feel like that's really synonymous with, obviously, growing a business is selling, but even as an individual salesperson, I feel like a lot of those same mindsets and approaches still hold true, right? You've got a certain compass which is driving you towards an outcome that you're trying to achieve. However, you have to be open to just natural ways that things are going to change and move and shift along that path to your success.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think when we bought products, and HubSpot's one of them, we bought because it seemed to us like the salesperson was hugely convinced that if we were to purchase their product or service, we would experience a better life. It would solve some problem that we had and take away some point of pain. And I think raising money, which we've now done 5 times, is very similar, right? That you need to convince the investor, whose personal pain point is put money to work in attractive ways, that they almost can't go on without investing in your company.
So that actually leads perfectly into our next audience question, which is they're saying, okay, so you wrote the email, we got a concept of what that is, but now you actually get a reply and you start in this engagement. Like, what was that closing cycle like? Like, how did your sales process work there, and how long did it take?
Yeah, so this is probably a bad example, because I think, having been involved with 10,000 sales processes now at our company, this was by far the smoothest and least painful. Mark wrote back very, very quickly thereafter, and this was a summer Friday afternoon. What's the valuation? And would you ever offer something called Hourly Nerd on Demand? So we told him, it was a convertible note at a very reasonable cap. And of course, on demand sounds great. Probably some logistical challenges to pulling it off, but in general, a great idea. So I send back those 2 responses really quickly. He writes back, okay, great, handing you off to my general counsel to get the paperwork done. And so we had that was I believe that was July 13th. We had about a month of negotiation around pretty fine point legal terms, but in that first email exchange, 3 emails, me, him, me, we basically agreed on valuation. The company was a good thing, that he was going to invest in it. And then his folks did a lot of background checks and things like that. But really, the commercial argument all happened on that one Friday afternoon.
Wow. So I actually didn't even know this ahead of the session. You never spoke on the phone.
No, we only met him about 6 months later for the first time.
You guys never had a face-to-face interaction. You never met on the phone. The entire deal was done over email.
That's accurate, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I guess in a lot of ways too, that's where a lot of sales is headed, right? Like people, especially in our market at HubSpot, right? Like there's a tremendous amount of education and learning and teaching that occurs within our sales process, and people really value human interaction as a part of that ultimate decision-making process. And they value, I think, a salesperson doing discovery and framing and helping them actually see the right path forwards. However, I think increasingly we're finding ways to put that into mediums, which is not the telephone and not online meetings and not taking that time. We're finding mediums to do that in web chat. We're finding mediums to do that over email. And I think that's a big trend in the industry overall. And it's kind of cool to see actual massive deals getting done, right? Just over.
The same thing in our business. We routinely close a couple $100,000 deals where our salesperson has never spoken to the customer on the phone. And I think a lot of that comes from, there's so much you can do to put out a presence that's credible and reputable online, whether it's through best-in-class content or customer testimonials, that you can get people pretty much all the way down this is a good idea curve, and then they just think about how it fits in with their life.
Yeah.
And so honestly, nearly all of the interactions our customers have with our salespeople are around logistics. How do I actually close this deal? Does the person show up on site? What does the contract look like? And not convince me that I should use Catalant.
That's pretty cool. So continue to throw your questions in. We definitely want to hear more of them, I guess. Okay, we got a couple now. So audience really wants to go back to the email, the storyline of the pitch deck. So I guess start off, we were talking a little bit about the process of doing research, understanding the investor mindset ahead of that piece. Like, did you do any research? Did you dig in a little bit more on Mark and really prepare to write that note, or was it really largely just you're like, well, this guy's an investor and this is what he's about. So was it more assumption-based or true research-based?
Yeah, so I think the nice thing when you're trying to pitch somebody who's on Shark Tank is you can learn a tremendous amount from watching back episodes of the show.
Yep.
And then you see what they're truly like, not what they said in some Fortune magazine interview, but 60 minutes of content that airs once a week.
Totally.
What we saw about Mark was that he liked real businesses. And if you watch Shark Tank, you can see this. He does not like fads. He does not like concepts. He likes businesses that are going to very quickly turn into positive gross margin. Because I think one of his things is no business ever run out. No business ever failed for too many sales, right? And so what we really stressed in the deck, and this was a little bit ridiculous because at that point we'd only done about $9,000 in revenue, is we're full-time students. We only sell for this company when we get out of class every day around 4 o'clock, and we sell by going door to door. We literally walk up and down the streets of Harvard Square and Cambridge and Allston and Brighton, Mass, walking into small businesses and trying to give them business advice and getting money back. So I think there was a shoe leather element there that he really liked, which was that we were out actually doing it. Sales was absolutely core to our company, always has been. And then I think what he really liked was we were able to connect that to a market size. So we said, look, this door-to-door sales thing is not our long-term growth plan, but we actually do have a plan. And by the way, there's 23 million small businesses in the United States. And so if this is attractive to only a small fraction of them, you could build a really big company. And I think we cited examples like Paychex and QuickBooks and HubSpot and companies that had primarily sold to mid-enterprise and down at that point that we're able to scale to very big companies because there are just a lot of them and they need a lot of help.
So in the spirit of this concept of inbound sales day, you talk about this really started out as a pretty grassroots approach, and you're going door to door and you're knocking and you're creating, like, leveraging a ton of energy to create these conversations and to create this interest. What were some of the things that you did to create that inflection point to where now your sales team is just dealing with logistics? Like, how did that transformation occur for you?
Yeah, I think we've always had at our company this, what I call sort of audacious, irrational faith. The thing we're doing is right, that people deserve better access to talent and talent deserves better access to opportunities. And we've almost asserted from maybe the first day of the company that this is the way the world is going, like, get with us because it's going to be great. And I think, a lot of companies do that. The difference is, I think, the ones that succeed tend to be ones that are relevant, credible, and differentiated, where you're solving a problem that is meaningful to people, relevant. You or your company are well positioned to actually solve it well, which is the credible part. Like, people actually believe that the problem is real, relevancy, but also you're going to solve it well for them, and that it's different from any other solution in the market. And we've always come back to what can we do that is those three things: relevant, credible, differentiated, that make people believe that we're going to solve their pain point with high certainty. And we offer a money-back guarantee.
Money-back guarantee, that's like whispering sweet nothings in my ear when it comes to sales. I like that. So the question I have for you is, like, how do you think about this balance of, so today you've got a sales force, and your sales force is largely working with folks who are coming down your sales funnel and are saying, okay, this is credible. I understand what this is. I'm very interested in acquiring this type of service, but I've got questions. How do you balance growing in that mold with actually applying more energy against the market to try to grow faster? Like, how are you guys thinking about that?
Yes, we've thought lately a lot about that because what we've seen at each of our Fortune 1000 clients, GE and Pfizer, Fidelity are some of the largest. Once we can convince a quite senior person at that company that what we're doing is going to help the company, they will actually turn around and be our champion and evangelist. Not because they care about us, not because they're great people, but simply because they want to help their company. Purely selfish. So we found when we can create passionate evangelists for our brand, that does all of our selling and all of our marketing. Now, that is really hard, of course, but a lot of it is, can you articulate a value proposition to somebody who matters at a company and then actually deliver on it? And because we have a 99% approval rating on the work, the odds that the person's going to be satisfied are very high. And then the 1% that they don't, they get their money back. And so it's almost structurally impossible to have a bad experience with Catalant.
That's awesome. It's what we strive for a lot at HubSpot too. Actually, like a tactical idea there is we actually use a framework called NPS, and we use the NPS survey to get a better understanding of how our customers feel about their interaction with us and how they feel about the value they get from HubSpot. And then in turn, we leverage our kind of internal focus towards really moving that number, because we believe the same thing, right? If your customers are out there saying positive things in the market and spreading goodwill, then it's just a matter of time before you have the world out there marketing your business for you.
For sure.
That's the name of the game. So audience question that we have is really around this concept of global expansion versus just very focused on domestic growth. How are you thinking about your domestic growth versus your global expansion and how that all fits in for Catalant moving forward?
Yeah, so we think about globality at our company in two ways. There's on the supply side. So do we have experts in territories that are relevant to our customers? And then on the demand side, do we sell projects to international companies? So first, on supply, absolutely. We are already global. 15% of our experts are outside of the US, particularly in English-speaking Asia, which is a very big focus, and throw China into that. Very, very big focus for our American global corporations. They want to do more in Asia, and we want to help them do it. What they often lack is local market knowledge. And so for a lot of our consumer packaged good companies, for a lot of our financial services companies, growing with Asian millennials is critical to us. We can help you with that. And we have people on the ground in the relevant geographies to assist with that. On the global demand side, e.g. selling to non-US companies, that we've relatively deprioritized in the short term. We have customers in France, we have them in South Africa, we have them, and these are true companies over there, not divisions of US companies. The challenge is it's difficult as even today, a small company, to maintain a global demand force, right? It's one thing to pick off an intermittent project in Australia, entirely different thing to open a sales office there. So are we going to do that in the next 5 years? 100%. Next 3 years, maybe. Next 1 year, probably not.
Very cool. And what's that tipping point for you? How do you decide?
So what we've always said is the point at which we will invest really heavily outside of the US is when at least one of three things are true. Our domestic customers are saying you absolutely must be in these geographies or we won't work with you because it's table stakes to serving us. Two, we feel as if some of those markets are both large and ready for what we're doing. And if you look at markets internationally, very few of them are US scale. And then if you multiply by how comfortable are they with the freelance gig economy, even less so. And then the last is, are there massive synergies to being a global corporation, right? Is there knowledge that we would be actually creating in China and being?
All right, we're back. Sorry for the interruption. So Rob, awesome session. We appreciate all the insight that you've given here. Any final thoughts for everybody before we wrap up?
No, look, we would love to work with any of you that could benefit. We're at gocatalant.com. We work with literally pizzerias all the way up through General Electric and everything in between. HubSpot's been a fantastic partner for us, on the email marketing and the automation front. So,
what's your one word of advice for anybody who would want to follow in your footsteps?
Only start a company that you're extremely passionate about, because otherwise the bumps and grinds of the process will take you down.
Beautiful advice. Well, thank you, everybody. Again, this is Inbound Sales Day. We've got a ton of content for the rest of the day that's going to be super exciting. It's going to be tremendous information from awesome industry experts. And you can tweet at us, #Inbound Sales Day. Rob, thank you for stopping by. We appreciate it very much.
Great to be here.
Cool. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you soon.